Welcome back. We've got Gordon Mooneyhan here with us with the Grand Strand Amateur Radio Club. Thanks for being here with us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Trey.
All right, so amateur radio, even though it is more than a century old, it actually still plays a pretty valuable lesson in our communities. Most recently with the eclipse. Tell us how the amateur radios played a role in the eclipse.
Okay, a few years ago there was an eclipse over in England, and they noticed changes in the ionosphere. That's the layer of the atmosphere from about 60 up to about 250, 300 miles. And sunlight causes it to happen. Amateur radio operators use it as a mirror to bounce our radio signals around the world.
Okay, all right.
And this eclipse was the first opportunity science had to study it over a long distance. We had almost 3,000 miles. And we were able to log changes in what we were able to hear. And
what did you hear? Anything interesting?
Other amateur radio operators, beacon stations, which are like lighthouses, and from where you could hear them, they were able to determine the propagation.
Mm-hmm.
The reports weren't due until the end of last month, but the preliminaries, they found effects started sooner than they thought they would and lasted longer than they thought they would.
That is fascinating. Fascinating stuff. And I probably should have asked this sooner. Tell us exactly what is amateur radio and ham radio, because they're one and the same. They can be used interchangeably.
They are. They're both terms for the same thing. We're people for who radio is a hobby, or broadcast, or TV is a hobby. We do amateur TV. The first transatlantic TV signal was in 1926, I believe, and it was done by two hams, one in England, one in Boston, I think. And we're hobbyists, but we're also almost professional, because when it comes to emergencies like hurricanes, earthquakes, we're the last resort of communication.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys are still relevant today. Explain to me the role that amateur radio had in the aftermath of Hurricanes Harvey and Irma.
Okay, let's use, what was M?
Harvey?
No,
Irma?
M, the last one.
Maria.
Down in Puerto Rico.
Maria.
Yeah, Maria. After Maria, for the first 5 days, the only communications out of Puerto Rico was ham radio.
Wow.
The entire infrastructure, as we know, was destroyed. And ham radio was the only source of communications out of Puerto Rico for the general public. And we worked with the Red Cross to basically just get messages out of Puerto Rico to the mainland that, hey, we're okay, you know. Yeah, things are tough, but
yeah,
we made it through okay.
So when all else fails, there's ham and amateur radio.
Exactly,
really.
Exactly.
All right. Talk to me a little bit about how does amateur radio remain on the cutting edge of the technological evolution? I mean, we've come a long way, obviously, but you have an instance like Hurricane Maria where they're still pretty relevant and powerful.
Yes, and we're allowed to experiment. Our licenses give us the rights to experiment with the different frequencies that were allocated. Ham radio operators invented voice over internet, which now is known as Skype.
So you're telling me that Skype is really a byproduct of amateur radio?
It is. Cell phones are a byproduct of amateur radio. A radio like this started the cell phone technology that we have today.
Now, I call those walkie-talkies. What exactly is that?
It's a walkie-talkie.
All right.
Yeah. You know, handy-talkie, walkie-talkie, all one and same.
All because of amateur radio.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, and you've got a big club, and we're going to talk a little bit about that when we come back. We got to take a quick break.
Okay.
But after this break, we're learning all sorts of cool and interesting stuff here this morning. Come on back. Welcome back. We've got Gordon Mooneyhan here with us with the Grand Strand Amateur Radio Club. We appreciate you being here with us this morning. I'm learning so much here about amateur and ham radio this morning. And at the end of the day, you know, it is in some ways a thing of the past. It's more than a century old.
It is.
But consider this. It does allow you to talk with people around the world without an internet. Explain to me how that works exactly.
Okay. We have 2 radios. I've talked with friends in England. I've made friends in England by ham radio. And it's just tune in, listen, and then when there's a break, jump in.
Now, is this a ham radio that you have here with us this morning? What do you have here exactly? Explain these walkie-talkies.
This is a conventional, strictly 100% radio.
Okay.
This one is a digital radio. And what it does, it transmits to a local repeater, which is hooked to the internet. Mm-hmm. And so with this one, I can talk around the world.
But the other one, when the internet fails, you can use that.
When the internet fails, we have this as a backup.
And you think about that, you know, what happens when the internet crashes or something like that? Well, you've got an amateur radio there.
Or when cell phones crash. Because in an emergency, cell phones are going to get overloaded. People aren't going to think to text. Mm-hmm. Text will allow more traffic through, but eventually it's going to overload and the system's going to crash. We're still there.
You seem very passionate about this, Gordon. I want to ask, what made you decide to get involved in amateur radio? Was it something that you just took an interest in at a younger age, or what was it?
I was interested when I was younger, but back then you had to go to an FCC field office to take a license, and that was either Charlotte or Atlanta. And back in the 70s, you couldn't get there from here. Mm-hmm. So it stayed on the back burner. Then Hurricane Hugo came along in 1989. Mm-hmm. I evacuated to Sumter, went right into the middle of the storm, mm-hmm. and after that said, I'm not going to evacuate again. So if I'm not going to evacuate, what can I do to be useful? Mm-hmm. And the interest in ham radio came back.
And you told us most recently with Hurricane Maria, these radios have come in really handy.
Yes.
This is a pretty big deal here. And you know, you think it's a thing of the past, but here in Myrtle Beach High School, students are being taught about ham radios. Explain what they're being taught and the role these radios will play with students and outer space.
Yes. One of the teachers at Myrtle Beach High has contacted our club, and we are working with her to arrange, probably in 2018, to be involved with amateur radio on the International Space Station.
Wow.
And the students will have about a 10-12 minute window where they'll be able to ask questions to the astronauts on the space station.
How about that? Communicating out into space, if you think about it. That's amazing. And you know, you want to keep amateur radio alive in some ways, and that's kind of your role. You're the public information officer of this club. Yes. If people who are watching right now, they want to get involved, how do we go about joining? Do you need more members?
We can use any members who want to join. Anyone who is interested, we'll be happy to have you as a member.
How many members do we have right here in the Grand Strand?
We have 112 members. There's about 250 licensed amateur operators in Horry County.
Wow. Wow, so it is of interest to some people.
Yes.
What are people most interested in, do you think?
Oh, it varies. We have operators who are Freemasons, we have coin collectors, stamp collectors. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's another way for people to share other hobbies. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, we're not the geeks that hide out in the basement, you know, anymore. We're able to, thanks to advances in technology.
We've seen that you guys have provided a lot of help in some serious disasters, including the hurricane, and then you were there present with the total eclipse. That was pretty interesting, the role that you played there. Yeah. Did you see an uptick in membership when that happened? Or
we had a few more hits to our website, but and there's been a few more members since, so, you know.
All right, interesting stuff. How do you go about joining exactly? Tell me the process and the fees and everything that goes along with it.
Okay, fee for membership is $25 a year.
Okay.
Tests, the FCC tests are available online. We have tests every other month. The next one will be November 11th out at the Academy of Hope. We're having our fundraiser out there. We'll have testing out there, and fee is $15 per test, I think.
Okay.
And we're able to literally within 2 or 3 days after you take the test, you have your license.
Wow, that sounds pretty interesting to me. Gordon Mooneyhan, we appreciate you stopping by this morning and talking to us. I've learned a lot. I hope you've learned a lot at home. Anything else you want to add?
Not really. If you want a hobby that can keep your mind active, this is one that can do it.
All right, thank you so much. We'll be right back.